Welcome to Monday. And it is, I thought for sure this week we'd have a nice little short weather report. We could get through it quickly, hang out and chat. 3 hours it took me to write the report this week. So there is a lot going on this week. So I'm going to try to unpack it in sections just so that you can integrate it, because I really think that in a lot of ways, this week is going to be a week where in a year from now, we'll look back at this week and say, this was the week when it all started. So big stuff brewing in the celestial weather. So, all right, we'll get started. Hold on. I am trying to make my font on my notes big enough for us to see. All right, so let's start first with the big events. And just to inform you, because as I go through this today, I just want to remind you, if you go to my Clubhouse page, it's KarenCurry.club. If you go to that webpage and subscribe, you can get a written copy of what we talk about today. So do go check it out. There, I also put out a weekly video. You can get the video there too, and you can also see other kinds of cool things and exciting things we've got coming up. So KarenCurryParker.club. And of course, you can find us on Instagram, Karen Curry Parker, or on Facebook, Karen Curry Parker. It's the same. So it's easy to remember. So we're going to start with the big events first. So we have an annular solar eclipse this week with a new moon on June the 10th. So I'm going to review, both of those are in the gate 45. And of course, the sun is also in the gate 45, the gate of distribution. So we've got a lot going on this week. So let's unpack this. So the first thing we have to remember is that anytime we have an eclipse, it amps things up. And a solar eclipse is the opening of a gateway. A lunar eclipse is kind of a closing of a gateway. So last month, May 26th, we had a lunar eclipse. It kind of closed out the eclipse, from the solar eclipse that started last year, kind of gave us the incentive to explore, what do we need to release? What do we need to let go of to make sure that we are writing for ourselves a personal narrative that drops us into a powerful state of being connected to our power. And power certainly is a theme also with this solar eclipse. So this solar eclipse is like a gate opening. It's a beginning cycle. We're in an eclipse cycle right now that's on the Gemini-Sagittarius axis, which is kind of an interesting axis, because to me, Gemini gives us options to think in a binary way. It's this or that, high or low. And so when we're in Gemini energy and we're clear, it gives us direction for momentum. And certainly Sagittarius gives us a lot of direction for momentum, a lot of energy that's about exploring new terrains, new frontiers. But of course, the work always starts with Gemini of deciding this or that, high or low, and getting a line between these two polarized parts of ourselves, or bringing the spectrum of possibility into a more aligned kind of midline place. So we're kind of playing around still with this energy of focus, with this energy of alignment, and really deciding who are we and what direction are we going to take ourselves. This is the big theme. I can't stress strongly enough. This is the big theme from now until the end of October anyway. And of course, everything that's happening in the weather this week is kind of amplifying it. So we have this big, powerful piece coming up of continuing to find the language, the narrative, really getting clear on our focus and putting words to what we want and where we're headed. Gemini, the sun is in Gemini. It's a Gemini season, and it's, Gemini is always the energy of communication. And when we look at this through the lens of human design, we're actually in the human design creative quarter of the template, meaning, and in the human design year is split into 4 quarters. Each quarter has a specific creative theme. The creative theme of this quarter is to put into words what we want, what we're seeking to build. In this quarter, the sun travels through all of the gates on the throat center. So we're really literally building a template, an energetic template, using the power of language. And certainly we're focusing on communication, manifestation into action, language, and speaking your truth. Okay, so this is the quarter we're in. The sun is occupying this energy. We've got a new moon in this energy. We've got a solar eclipse in this energy. It is really a big, big, powerful opportunity to start something new. And if you've been listening to me the last few weeks, you know that I have been saying over and over and over again, we've got to be building a template, writing a narrative about who we are and where we're headed. And certainly this eclipse is going to continue to point our focus in this direction. So we've got a new moon in the quarter of the template, the sun in Gemini, and of course, making it all so much more interesting, we've got Mercury, the planet of communication, in a retrograde station. So there's just a tremendous amount of potential and for support, deep support from the celestial weather to get clear. So there's a lot of potential for clarity, a lot of potential to go deep, and a lot of potential to really explore and initiate through crafting a narrative what we want in our lives. So I can't stress strongly enough. I know I've been saying this for 3 weeks, so forgive me for repeating myself again and again and again, but I can't stress strongly enough why it's so important for you to literally write, put words to what you want in your life. Even if it's just a bulleted list, get clear about, at the very least, how you want your life to feel. You don't need to know the details. You don't have to flesh it out. You don't have to know what color your dream car is going to be. You don't need to know, what your dream house looks like or what your dream job is even. But you really, really, really need to have at least clarity about, how do you want yourself to feel? How do you want to feel as you unfold the beauty of your life? So of course, we're forging new beginnings in this quarter. We're forging new beginnings with the moon. We're forging new beginnings with the sun. And, really after the cosmic events of last year, we're literally mapping new territory. So, we've had this long pause, and now we have this opportunity to go deep, as I said, and explore, who are we? What are our values? What do we want? And of course, when we have a good map, we have clear direction. And of course, if you're mapping your journey, you got to have a direction so that you know where to start your journey. So if I was going to summarize what's ahead of us, just kind of based on a grand overview of the past year leading up to this cataclysmic place, I'd say that first and foremost, we are seriously redefining who we are. And in many cases, literally geographically moving ourselves into places that better match our value. And that might be moving literally, or just shifting your community, shifting your focus, shifting where you're at. Big themes. I do predict that, especially for those of you who are in business or looking ahead towards what are the next trends to be focusing on, I certainly would say affordable and equitable housing is definitely going to take front and center stage. As we're exploring how and where we want to live, we're really looking at lifestyle, and we want a lifestyle that's going to match our values, and a lifestyle that's going to really match how our life and our lifestyle really feeds our heart and souls. This past year has also shown us that there's a lot of things that we can do for ourselves that we thought we needed someone else to do for us. So it's kind of a DIY theme going on right now. So I think that, this gives us a lot of opportunity for creating new business, for learning new crafts or hacks, for becoming more and more self-reliant, and really enjoying discovering how creative we can be. And this creativity, I think, is continuing to launch us into reconnecting with our creative power, and it certainly gives us a new sense of possibility and expansion, and hopefully a new sense of hope that we can cultivate what we need to cultivate to really significantly continue to make the changes we've been dreaming about while we were in lockdown for the last year or so. So we're also rethinking how we work. We're rethinking our relationships. We're rethinking power structures within our workplace. And we're really exploring how we can become more collaborative and more equitable. We have discovered that we can work from home and still get things done. And even though, 20 years ago, that wasn't such a thing. We were told we couldn't. People would lose their motivation. What employers have found out is that we can go home and still do what we need to do. And of course, we've learned that if we can work for someone else from home, many of us are also exploring, maybe we can work for ourselves and do even more. So We are hungry right now to connect with each other more intimately. We're emerging from our bubbles. We're going to want to travel. We're going to want to see the world. We're going to connect more deeply. And we're going to be more active in our communities, more aware of each other, more empathic as we realize and integrate that we truly are all connected. I mean, if we haven't learned anything this last year, surely we've learned that we're all connected to each other, and that what happens on one side of the globe certainly has the power to impact the whole world very quickly. So this hunger for intimacy is also causing us to refocus back on our families. And we're exploring how we can stay better connected to those we love. We're trying to keep the values we've cultivated over the past year alive. And we're really wanting to better live from these values in every area of our lives and take that understanding, that reconnection with our values back out into the world and back out into systems, including the education system, the communication system, healthcare, government, and more. I think, I'm just personally been watching the education system, because, we went from being in class to distance learning. And then in our family, we chose to homeschool because the distance learning wasn't that great. And really looking at the freedom that we had, the depth that we had through homeschooling, and now being back in school, really wanting and kind of longing for that same quality of life that we had with homeschooling that we don't really have within school, and looking at, well, how do we change the school system so that there is more of a customized feel to how we educate each child within the system. And we don't think of kids as formulas. We don't push kids through a system, but we instead consciously and deliberately look at who they are and how do we connect them in a meaningful way to what they're here to do in the world and the gifts they're here to bring in the world. We are craving to be initiated into a way of living that is modern and realistic and simultaneously rooted in the rituals of the heart. So we are looking for portals of entry that mark new seasons of growth. We don't want to go back to the old ways, but we do want to take what we've learned, integrate it into modern life, and craft a lifestyle that lets us stay in harmony with everyone and the earth and our sustainability goals, and also allows us to really keep our priorities straight, but still keep moving forward. So, it's not like we want to go back to the old days. We don't. We don't want to go back to living off the land. And I'm laughing. I don't know if any of you've seen the prairie dress trend at Target. Have you guys seen that, Kristen, Jamie, Betsy? Oh my God, it's a funny thing. Like, and if you go to Target, they're all hanging in the front at the store where you walk in. Like, the women's clothing section is all prairie dresses. It's like, we don't want to go back to Little House on the Prairie. It wasn't actually that great. It was really, really hard. And any of you who started to have your COVID garden last year and grow your own vegetables, that's not as dreamy as it sounds. You spend hundreds of dollars getting, like $20 of vegetables out of the garden, and then ordering a CSA box anyway, right? So, but we do want to take with us those core values that I think were so meaningful, that came from living a lifestyle where we were forced to really figure out, how do we get along together if we're going to live in this log cabin together? How do we live in alignment with our values? How do we find those cycles of rest and pause? How do we create those spaces of intimacy? And what rituals do we need in our regular life to keep us connected to the heart of who we are, not only individually, but together as families, together as communities, together as people of a nation, and of course, as a family of humans on the planet. So I do think we're still going to continue to see over the next few years, and who knows what will happen this week. Systems will change and possibly fall. We're inevitably going to have to explore how to better serve each other and the world. And if we're going to move into equitable, sustainable lifestyles, and that becomes a paramount, a driver, then we have to keep inspired to do the work to heal the world and, of course, heal ourselves and each other. This is the dream that this new moon brings us. It's really bringing us this dream of how to share and use resources for the greater good of the whole, how to manage resources judiciously so that they benefit the most amount of people. We're learning to share with each other, but here's the piece that we have to really remember. We can't share if we don't also have enough to share. So our focus shifts to making sure first that we have the resources and the energy to cultivate an overflowing cup from which we can give. So learning to be generous with ourselves first, and making sure that we're cultivating an inner and outer environment that is kind and expansive is essential. So again, an exploration this week into what kind of internal environment are you crafting for yourself, and what kind of external environment are you putting yourself in? Is there alignment there? Are you being kind to yourself on the inside so that you can experience kindness on the outside and be a vessel and a vehicle for kindness, or for expansion, or for generosity, or for contribution? If we are not first solid in our own self, our own energy, our own identity, our own value, it's going to be difficult for us to share without hidden agendas, or to share in a sustainable way. So all of this is really the high expression of this gate 45 energy, which, we've got sun, we've got moon, we've got eclipse, all of this sort of pushing on this energy. But, as always, I have to at least do a cursory overview of the potential shadow side. So, the shadow side of this energy really lives in traditional human design when we call this gate the gate 45, the gate of the king or the queen. Obviously a good queen, a good king has resources and shares their resources with the people. But the shadow of the king or the shadow of the queen is sort of, the unhealthy diva, the walking into the room and swooshing the cape. It's the energy of ego rulership, of taking and seizing for yourself when you think you don't have enough, or if you feel as though you're lacking in some way. You overcompensate for your inner sense of lack by trying to create something on the external plane that is really a mask that you're using to hide your own emptiness. So, with Mercury retrograde in this same energy, because Mercury's conjunct the 45 this week, it certainly offers the potential for deception, confusion, big problems with communication, and especially communication that's being deliberately either disconnected, manipulated, or distorted, or really attempts to obfuscate the truth. So, a lot of potential, because I think this energy is also square Neptune, just a lot of potential for us if we're not careful, for things to not be as they seem, for things to be murky, and I would even say, this whole ransomware thing we've been talking about in the news is so much a part of this energy. Take down the grid, disrupt communication systems. It's very, very interesting. And, obviously a little bit frightening in this context of, what is going on? That's a big question this week, on multiple levels. So I really want to encourage everybody this week, especially to take your time to just really feel the intention of what people are doing during this time, and really trust yourself if it feels wrong or if something feels off. Even if you can't find the proof, trust yourself and trust your gut instincts. If it doesn't smell right, if it smells like a rat, if it feels really wonky and your internal BS detector goes off, even though it looks good, trust yourself. So, remember that people who don't think they're enough have the potential to be out of integrity, and they will try to hoard, or they will try to steal, or they'll take, and it's really just a symptom of their own not enoughness, if you will. So really take time during this new moon and this eclipse to explore the strength of your own value, your own self-worth, and the status of your internal and external resources. Ask yourself, what do you have, and how can you use what you have and who you are to better serve the world? We're cultivating the ability to understand that knowledge and material resources are powerful, and we're discovering how to use both as a path of service that sustains others and helps others grow their own abundant foundation. I keep going back to, this has really been the theme of not only the lunar eclipse in May, but this solar eclipse. I keep going back to Spider-Man and that line in Spider-Man that says, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So with great power comes great responsibility. And certainly, this gate 45, this energy of distribution, is a tremendous responsibility. Your life is a responsibility. You were born for a reason, and that reason is, first of all, to utterly and completely and relentlessly and authentically fulfill yourself. because that's what fills the cup. That's what fills the cup to overflowing, and allows you to better serve. So your life is to fulfill yourself in every way, and then from that fulfilled place, turn around and share who you are with the world, and that sharing has a tremendous amount of responsibility. And part of that responsibility is to nurture yourself so that you can keep sharing, to take care of yourself, to sustain yourself so that you can fully embody that frequency of sustainability, that frequency of value, so that you can really give greater value to the world because you're living it, you're embodied in it. And as much as the more you do that for yourself, the more you really do that in the fullest and deepest way possible, the more you create an energy wave that creates space for others to do the same. So it really does all start with you first. So that's kind of step one. It's part one of the overview. Any questions, you guys, before we move to part two? Okay, all right. Part two. Part two, let's talk about Saturn. So Saturn is also in a retrograde station. And this week it moves from the gate 13, the gate of narrative, where, Saturn has been sort of pushing on us, as are all the planets, to make sure we're using language responsibly, to make sure we're telling a good story about who we are, to make sure we're crafting a narrative that's big enough and juicy enough to call us forward, right? So Saturn moves into the gate 19 in its retrograde position, the gate of attunement. So, in the midst of all of this eclipse intensity, and those of you who know what's coming next, you're already probably hiding under the table. In the midst of all of this eclipse intensity, we're also extra sensitive, and we're dialed into the emotional needs of others, and it really makes us potentially hyper aware, and potentially, because we are really sensitive, and frankly, I have the great gift and blessing of attracting people with big giant open hearts to begin with. With our open hearts and our deep attunement, we're feeling everything. And of course, this energy makes us conscious of our own needs. It makes us conscious of the needs of others. And it gives us the ability to be more aware and empathic, but it also kind of puts us at risk because it's Saturn. And Saturn sort of teaches us sometimes by showing us what not to do first. Saturn is teaching us to care, but to not let the energy of others disrupt your own direction. Okay, it's telling us to really make sure that you stay aligned with who you are, your own value and what you value, and to really make sure that if you're in that, to stay in that value, because when you stand in your own value and your own values, then your outer world begins to look like the inner landscape of your heart. And of course, it's just a beautiful continuation of this theme of who are you, what's your right place, who are you here to serve, what's your value, what are you here to share with the world, how can you increase your place of service, how can you increase your own value, what do you need to do to sustain your value so that you can better do what you came here to do. So that's Saturn. Next part. Any questions about Saturn? I know Jamie's hiding under the table already. Good policy. I love that. Yes, totally. So on Friday, Uranus, which is also in its retrograde station, moves from the gate 60, the gate of conservation, to the gate 61, the gate of wonder. Okay, so, I think that a lot of what we see playing out, especially in the global political arena, this big surge we've had in the last year and a half, especially around conservatism versus innovation and progress, and this huge sort of conservative, I don't want to call it a conservative backlash because I don't want to judge it, because conservatism is really an essential part of evolution. We don't necessarily like it, those of us who are more mutative by nature, but we need people to not want to change in order for us to change, because they force us to have to take stock of, well, what is working? What is right? If we're going to move forward and innovate, what are we going to bring with us that does work? Because if we don't bring that with us, then we're starting over every time we grow. And, you are sort of starting over, but you don't want to start over from scratch. That's not progress. That's burning the building down and building anew every single time you make a move forward. And that's exhausting, it's depleting, and it's really not usually effective. So we really do need this conservative wave. We don't like some of us don't like it, but we need it. And it really keeps, mutation in check. And as it starts to escalate and starts to impede progress, it causes us to have to also get very, very clear about where we're going so that we can really craft a clear message that either brings people with us or not, but really allows innovation to be very carefully refined. And that power of Uranus in this gate 60, in this gate of conservation, is a very important thing. Of course, we're in a retrograde station with Uranus, so we're doing this, really on the inner plane, but this is a collective planet. So on a collective level, we're looking at this and we're watching this and we're watching this play out and we're watching this play out in the news. And a lot of us are just watching it like, what the is happening, right? And so that's an aspect of the retrograde piece we're learning. That watching that we're doing is a key part of the learning process. When Uranus moves on Friday to the gate 61, the gate of wonder, this energy I think is going to shift a little bit. So Uranus is deprogramming and disassembling infrastructures that don't support us. So in a retrograde station, we're really collectively looking inward and we're exploring, as I said, what works and what doesn't. So the gate 61, this new energy, invites us to explore what old thoughts, patterns, and beliefs do we need to release in order to align with our knowingness and to trust in our delusional confidence as a part of our powerful creative state. So we've sort of watched it. We've been paying attention to it. We're going back into a cycle of dreaming about possibilities. The 61 really is a place where we connect almost directly with the quantum field or God or source or whatever you want to call it. It's a place where we get a bigger picture, a bigger perspective on what else is possible. And so we're sort of dipping into this well of new possibilities from this state of wonder and awe. And, because it's retrograde, we're going to have to go back through the 60 again. And when Uranus hits a forward station, and of course, we're not really going to go back to through the 60, the gate of conservation, until next year. So we have a little bit of time here to sort of look at, well, what happened? What happened? How did we get here? What is all this stuff happening? And to really start exploring, okay, well, that happened. Why? What was the gift? What were the blessings? What were the lessons? How can we expand on that? How can we take what we've learned and bring it back down into a practical way to really apply what we want, the dreams we hold, in an innovative way so that we can continue to evolve the infrastructures, which is really, this is what Uranus does, especially when we have Uranus and Taurus. We go through these massive infrastructure, destruction, reconstruction cycles, and systems are under pressure and systems are changing and will continue to be under pressure and shift for quite a few more years, at least 5 more years. So I really do think that the world that we started at, the place where we started in the world at the beginning of last year, 2020, and where we'll end up in 2027, it will just be light years away from where we started. And really the infrastructures are falling because they aren't equitable, because they're not sustainable, because they're not necessarily built on the foundation that all life is precious. And as we continue to redefine the value of life and start defining the metric of value and success as well-being versus material goods, then we start to shift and change the end goals of systems, and the infrastructures that fall or are reorganized around the idea that we can create a greater state of well-being for the world. How can we do this? How can we organize ourselves to really bring this into form? So this gate 61 promises to change our focus, for some of us anyway, away from desperately clinging to the past and being afraid to move forward to exploring other possibilities. My one concern is, since it's retrograde, as I said, we're going to have to come back around and try to pry the fingers of old conservative ideas off the new, more evolved, innovative momentum again. But we hopefully won't see the old vanguard rise up until January or February of next year. So, and when we do, of course, we'll be stronger and more rooted by that time. Okay. Last but not least, you ready? Sun and Earth. So the sun this week, as we've been talking about, transits the gate 45, the gate of distribution, and it's continuing to highlight the question of what are you here to give the world, and do you have enough, and are you in your own enoughness? With the Earth transiting the gate 26, the gate of integrity, we're further reminded that we have nothing to share with the world if we are out of integrity with ourselves and each other. So integrity is rooted in our sense of self-worth. And if we think we are not enough, it's going to impact 5 key areas in your life. So those 5 key areas are, number 1, your physical integrity, which is, when you're in physical integrity, your body is healthy and vital. Number 2, resource integrity, meaning it's going to impact when we use our material resources and whether we use our material resources in a sustainable way. So that's right now, at least in the way that we describe resources, that's oftentimes money and things, right? So if we are out of integrity with ourselves, or we're not staying aligned with our value, it has the potential to impact our money and our financial stability. When we're struggling with our self-worth, we oftentimes get out of what we call identity integrity. That's, identity integrity is experienced when we feel that we can fully manifest the value of our authentic identity and we don't compromise. And of course, if you don't value yourself, you run the risk of being out of identity integrity with yourself, and you try to show up as someone you're not, which is exhausting, because to try to construct a mask, if you will, or try to construct a facade is depleting. And you can't carry that around with you for an extended period of time without burning yourself out. The fourth area that you can get out of integrity with yourself is moral integrity. So moral integrity is having the courage to do the right thing and to make sure that your actions are honest and aligned with higher principles and values. And last but not least, the last place we can get out of integrity is energetic integrity. And energetic integrity is experienced when we consistently and deliberately rest, take your vitamins, exercise, drink lots of water, take care of yourself so that you have the energy engaged with life in a sustainable way. It also means making the right commitments around your energy. So not making a commitment to do something that you don't want to do, but you think that if you do it, people will value you more or love you more. To really judiciously commit your energy in a discerning way that allows your energy to stay aligned and to stay vibrant. So really, if I'm going to sum all this up, this sort of the bottom line for the week, I'll just do this sort of as a bulleted list. Take stock of your value and set yourself on a course of healing your self-worth if you need to. Huge, huge number 1 imperative. Restock, resource, regenerate yourself so that you have more to give. Number 3, take some time to dream about who you are and what you were born to share with the world. Number 4, be gentle with yourself and others. It's going to be intense. Number 5, gratitude and wonder will keep you sane. Number 6, dream big. Think about what we've learned over the past year. Use words that lift you up, inspire you, and help you build a template for what you truly want to be experiencing in your life. And on top of all of that, please, please, please have a good week. That's it. That's what I got. So, yeah. Basically, buckle up. Um, so I do want to just lovingly and gently say we do want to hold time boundaries this week. We do need to pop off Clubhouse at 9:50 if we can. So we have about 15 minutes to take questions, thoughts, comments. So please, if you want to share with us, hop on, talk to us, let us know where you're at, how you're doing, what you want to work on or what you're thinking about working on for your week ahead. We would love to talk with you or chat with you. Yes. Oh, so yeah, totally. So yeah, we are discussing major infrastructure reconstruction or rebuilding initiatives. So we're looking at things like bridges and roads and how do we create, do buildings like that. So, and part of this is also to bring employment back online and to give, better work options for people. We're looking at, headlines big headlines this week, ransomware attacks. We've had I think technically although it's, I don't know this for sure, but I think other people do. Technically we've had Russians, Russian intelligence coming in and, basically shutting down people's, computer communication systems. So we've had grids go down, energetic grids go down. We've had a meat, God, it wasn't a packing plant. It was a meat company had their system go down. We've had gasoline lines interrupted. I mean, these are big, big communication distortions happening, under the influence of this energy in this Mercury retrograde system. And of course, the subtext of Mercury retrograde, because we've got all this theme about power and what is power and how do we use power and how to be responsible with power. It's very powerful if you can go in and disrupt somebody's computer systems and, take out the communication grids. That's huge, right? And so, really looking at all of this and kind of thinking, okay, communication is being distorted. And that's not even looking at how other ways in which communication is being distorted. It's been a big theme. It's really been a big theme for a while. It's been a big theme that's been playing out in the celestial weather all last year. The theme of what is true, what is truth. We're still playing with that theme. Uranus is still highlighting that theme. That's kind of another part of that gate 61, the gate of wonder energy. What is true? What is truth? It's hard for us to discern what is true and what is truth, especially when, and I think this is a huge thing, when you lose connection with your own inner sense of knowingness and you're trusting that external sources are bringing you the information and you're discounting your own inner alignment with, is that true or not? It can make, navigating in the world a little bit, first of all, it can make you very vulnerable to conspiracy theories. It can make you really vulnerable to not understanding what's going on, which I think is, I'm not recommending for everyone that you read the news all the time. I don't think that everyone has the heart or the stomach for it, but certainly I would say, at least nominally staying aware is essential, because that awareness helps us construct at least dreams about what else is possible. And sometimes those dreams are generated from pushing against what we see in the news. And sometimes we need to read the news because we just flip and need to pray for people, I think. But it's a powerful thing, this whole communication theme. And, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon and I really do think the purpose of that whole communication theme is to remind us, get connected with yourself. Get connected with what you know is truth for you, and get connected with your own intuitive understanding of what is truth, so that when you're confronted with conflicting information or information that, is confusing or you think you don't know anything about, that gives you the opportunity to really check in with yourself and see, does this feel right or not? Hi, Heather. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm glad it was fitting. Um, that's a good plan. It's a good plan. And and I really do try to present these reports like, don't hide under the desk. Really, it's okay. I mean, it really is sort of how you choose to navigate through it. And certainly, I mean, I think again, that's really been the theme for the last year and a half. I mean, I want to say this really carefully, and thank you, Heather, for sharing. I want to say this part really, really carefully, because I really don't want to be up here and say, well, COVID and being in a bubble and all the social distancing, it was whatever you chose to make of it. There are some people who had many, many, many people. If we start to look at how many people lost people in the last year, I don't want to downplay the losses of COVID. I don't want to downplay some of the racial disparity in the dissemination of information and healthcare from COVID. I don't want to downplay any of that. I don't want to downplay that many people lost their jobs and really got into dire situations. My daughter lives in Washington State, and this month they are lifting the eviction moratorium, and there is a massive exodus out of the state. I mean, getting a moving truck out of Washington State right now is like impossible. And and part of the reason why people are moving is because they're losing their homes and they have no, they lost their financial foundation and the back rent is now due. And so I don't want to downplay the hardness and the tragedy that people experienced during COVID. And I think it's really important that even if you fared well, to certainly be grateful and to really look at, okay, my cup is okay. My cup is maybe full, or at least my cup is to the rim. And, and to not be like, well, it was really wonderful. We got to sock away and have a really great time. We did. Some of us did. And to recognize that not everybody did have that opportunity. And to also be aware that the whole purpose of this the astrology of this entire COVID thing was to help us redefine the patterns of the past, to look at those patterns of the past and to really begin to analyze those patterns so that we could start building and moving towards creating something of greater value versus living in fear or living in pain. So, this whole cycle has been an exploration in how do we transform these patterns from patterns of fear and pain into something of greater value, into something that ultimately, over time, will create infrastructures that support the expansion of well-being and will support the idea that every single person has a right place, an irreplaceable place in the cosmic plan, and that every single person is valuable because they exist. Period. The end. There's nothing you have to do to prove your value. There's nothing you have to do to claim your value. There's nothing you have to do to define your value other than to breathe. And if we can really continue to build towards that place of recognizing the inherent value of life, of all humans, and I like to add, frankly, this is me, I like to add all sentient beings, that when we start living as if all of life is inherently precious, that's trees too. I like trees, and I'm reading a book right now called Finding the Mother Tree, which is amazing. It sort of takes the whole idea that trees communicate to a whole different level. Life is precious. Life is precious, and we really have to construct a lifestyle and infrastructures that really reflect that preciousness. So thank you, Heather. Did you have anything else you want to add to that, Heather? Well, I'm glad you got that moved back around to a really empowered perspective. And I think that also does sort of draw into view a different way of interpreting the gate 19 as well, which is also, of course, our Saturn energy. The 19 is part of the channel 1949, which is the place where intimacy and connection lives in the chart. And it's also a driver energy for emotional alignment and creativity. And I think what that gate shows us, particularly in the Saturn position, is that it is also time to take stock of our relationships and to make sure that the people in our lives have their hands on our back, because having support, real genuine support, people who can, I like to describe it as people who can stand in the gap of faith with you, who when you say, I have a dream, say, oh, awesome, we see that for you. How can we help you? How can we celebrate you? How can we help you anchor the energy of that dream? How can we push you forward? How can we keep you motivated and moving towards it even when you lose faith? That's essential for us as part of the creative process. And I think, honestly, it's sometimes the part or the thing that often hurts those of us who are naturally culturally creative, that when we're here to change the world and we're bringing in something different, if we don't have people behind us who say, I believe in you, I know you've got this, I can't wait to watch you do this. If we don't have that, it causes us to sometimes lose connection with our creative power, because we question ourselves and we start to spin out in self-doubt, or we start to lose our faith. So, Saturn is really also saying, look, you got to take stock of who's in your life right now, because you need a team of people who can really support you and lift you up and elevate you. And if you don't have that, it's not that you can't do what you came here to do, but it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it a little bit more emotionally challenging. And of course, being emotionally challenged, feeling hurt or devalued, or that your relationship isn't reflecting your value or your values, can, really disrupt your emotional well-being. And
of course, we know that emotional creativity is all about baseline frequencies. It's not about the day to day or even the cyclical fluctuations between high and low. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have, you're going to have tragedies and sorrows, and you're going to have, joy and expansion. And it's the midpoint, that baseline piece, and being able to get back to baseline, that's where the creativity happens. And you deserve to have people in your life who love you, who see you for who you are, who see you as bigger than you see yourself sometimes, and who can call you forward. And certainly, as I said, Saturn is also inviting us to take stock and to make sure that, yes, you have people in your life who love you, who really see you, and who really see you living and fulfilling your dreams. So I'm not saying kick everybody out, but I'm certainly saying it is an important time to redefine the agreements that you've made in your relationships and make sure that those agreements still hold. And really for us, all of us, this is a continuation of the energy that we played with earlier this year. We've already gone through this cycle once, with Saturn earlier this year, and we're kind of dancing around through it again. And we'll go through it again once it goes direct. So, we are really, really, really going deep with relationships this year in so many ways, and really looking at how do we make sure that our relationships are reflecting our value and our values. So you all don't know this. I have an amazing team. So I do want to just end the morning with acknowledging Kristen and Jamila, Betsy, and Cindy. Nothing in this, in the quantum alignment system, and with quantum human design would happen without these amazing and powerful people. And I do find it hysterical that even when Cindy's not here, she's managing the time. Cindy manages our time and our timing all over the place. So thank you, Cindy. I hope you can hear me. And I do want to just say you guys have a really, really amazing week, and do pace yourself, take care of yourself, be gentle with yourself, and love yourselves wildly. And I will see you. I won't be here next week because I will be on a plane with my grandsons and my daughter, flying them from Washington State back to Texas. But I feel pretty sure that Jamila and Cindy and Kristen and Betsy will be here running the show without me, and you guys have to come back because they are cosmic pirates, and they're going to take our show in a very beautiful and amazing and breathtaking direction, and I'll hear about it later. So you all have a great week.